Doug O'Neill, horse trainer, won the Kentucky Derby in Preakness. Love that name. I'll have another. Doug joins us now. Doug, what does all of this mean? Can you whip a horse too much?
Hey, good morning, Dan.
Hi, bud.
It's one of those situations where a race like the Derby, you got 170,000 people going crazy on the inside and outside of the horse. You've got horses who have nearly 360-degree vision. So, I think Victor, and as you watch replay, you could tell American Pharoah was trying to get out a little bit probably from all the noise inside and outside of him. And I think you strictly, as a jock in a race like that, you're just trying to keep the horse's attention on running. And I didn't see anything wrong with the ride, and the horse was responding from the ride. So I didn't see anything wrong there.
What is the purpose of the whip?
It's really just for that, just keeping their mind on their task and just keeping their attention. Now,
but it's not pain. But is it more of a timing or a reminder? But it's not. Is it inflicting pain?
Yeah, the whips have evolved into what they are now, which it's much softer, kinder. I mean, you could whack someone with it and it wouldn't hurt them. So it's really just the sound, and it's almost like a coach hitting a kid, a football player in the helmet, just kind of more of a shocking, attention-grabbing thing than anything painful or hurting.
So why would this bring about the potential of an inquiry?
Well, I think now with social media, you get a few people start worrying about things or concerned, and we do have to be concerned about the public perception of whips. But, I think as people get more knowledge, they'll realize that, that there can be a foul. If a horse isn't responding or a horse is backing out of a race and a rider is still hitting them, even with these softer, kinder whips, that's a foul. There's no need to do that. But if a horse is responding or a horse needs some direction from them shifting from noise or something new, then they make all the sense in the world. And, I talked to a couple of different jockeys this morning who said it's really key with these 1,000-pound animals to keep their mind, to task. You need to, every now and then, even just flag them with it, and there's no pain inflicted.
American Pharoah, obviously the overwhelming favorite in the Preakness, with only 8 horses on a racetrack that can get a little too tight there, but leaving from the number 1 hole here. Handicap this if you can, Doug.
Well, it's, like Bob Baffert says, if you're going to grab the 1 hole, you'd rather an 8-horse field than a 19-horse field. But it's still, he's in a spot where he's going to have to be asked earlier in the race than he was in the Derby. Breaking from the 18 hole, he was able to kind of just meander up there, and he had a great spot, and he was able to attack when he wanted to, where he's going to be pushed all the way. So I think he's vulnerable. He ran a really hard run race there, and I think Gary Stevens on firing line, who's drawn all the way on the outside in the Preakness, he's going to be able to do what American Pharoah did. He's going to be able to break, settle, watch what's going on inside of him, and then when he calls on firing line, I think he's the horse to beat.
Yeah, I could see that. But you know what? When you have a Kentucky Derby winner, it's those 2 weeks before the Preakness where you didn't have a Kentucky Derby winner before. You're not sure what to do before, right? Like you have that 2-week period where you go, okay, wait a minute. Do I do anything different than I would have done if I didn't win the Derby?
Yeah, well, that's where Simon Callahan, who's a young trainer but a really solid horseman, I think he's done the right move, because it's tempting to overwork your horse in those 2 weeks. And after the Derby, your horse is so fit, he's so ready that you really don't need to do a whole lot other than just normal gallops in between the 2 races. And, I love seeing Simon not put in a work, because I think that would have worked against him. And I think Simon's confident in his colt. And, all 3 of those horses that ran 1, 2, 3, I think are going to run 1, 2, 3 again this week in different orders, though. And all 3 of them have great jockeys, and it's going to be a fun race to watch. But if I bet a few bucks, it'll be on Stevens.
The toughest track, though, to handicap of the Triple Crown races would be what?
To handicap, I would say Belmont. I would say the Belmont, just because you got a mile and a half. None of these horses ever gone a mile and a half. You've got they call it the Big Sandy, because it's a big it's a real deep, sandy surface, so it's real demanding. And I think that's probably the most challenging of the three. But the Derby is right up there too, because you got a big field, big crowd, a lot of chaos, and some horses really fret from it, and some really thrive on it, and you just never know.
Did you talk to All Have Another before the Derby or the Preakness or the Belmont?
I did. Actually, we did. Yeah, we went up to Jeff Ruby's and had a quick little meal the night before, which was nice. And no, he had his team face on, and it was something that even us, we schooled him a couple times, but unless you school him the day before on Oaksay when there's a lot of people, you really never know. And I didn't want to take a chance of schooling him on Oaksay and him getting too anxious and leaving his race that day. So we kind of went in cold like everyone else did, and fortunately he handled it like the pro that he turned out to be.
But can you tell when a horse doesn't want to run on that day?
Well, I mean, if you get to the barn and he hasn't cleaned up all his nightly feed, that's a sign. When you're walking over to the paddock with the roar of the crowd and he's fretting and starting to sweat and lather up, that's a bad sign.
Do horses throw up?
They don't throw up. No, they don't regurgitate. So that's the trainers and owners do. And every now and then, jockeys are known to do it every now and then too.
Well, they may do it to make weight. Did you throw up before any of these Triple Crown races?
You can tell in the pictures of me. The last thing I would ever do is throw up. I try to keep it all in as much as I can.
What was a better party for you, the Kentucky Derby or the Preakness after you won?
Oh, the Preakness. Because now you go into Baltimore, which is the funnest city, other than a few weeks ago, but it's the funnest city around. And going in there as a Derby winner, the people at Pimlico just roll out the red carpet. They really take care of everybody, and we had so much fun there. So I think the Baltimore trip will forever be inked in my mind as the most fun trip I've ever been on.
Where's All Have Another?
He is in Japan, and I think he services about 150, 160 mares a year. Not a bad gig.
How much per?
I think U.S., if you're talking U.S., I think it's well over $100,000 per mare.
Wow.
I know, that is just insanity. That's about what you make, Dan. I mean, that's big money.
But what does he do on a day off? If you think about it, that would be like a good day off of what he does for his job.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, you wonder. I mean, he must brag to the other stallions who probably are getting 40 or 50 mares. He's probably like, listen, I saw this chestnut last night. It was unbelievable.
Does he have like a velvet, like a smoking blanket that they put over him like Hugh Hefner where he gets to prance around?
It's probably more like satin. Whatever is hip in Japan, believe me, he's wearing it. I can tell you that.
Good to visit with you as always, Doug.
You're the best. Sounds good. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, buddy. That's Doug O'Neill.